We all love a good underdog story. You know, the kind where the little guy beats the odds, where the hero survives the impossible, rises from the ashes, and keeps going long after everyone else has given up. We admire those who endure, who keep pushing through the storm, who survive, not because they're lucky, but because they're built for it. But what if I told you that the toughest creature on Earth, like literally the most indestructible life form we've ever discovered, is also one of the loneliest, most tragic little beings to ever exist? Meet the tardigrade. A creature so tiny you could fit thousands of them on the tip of a pencil. It looks like a gummy bear that fell into a sci-fi movie. Soft, squishy, with 8 stubby legs and a vacuum cleaner face. Scientists call it a water bear. And it's famous for one thing: not dying. Boiling water? No problem. Freezing solid? Sure. Crushed under pressure? Still fine. Radiation? Bring it on. The cold emptiness of outer space? Just another Tuesday. It can shut itself down, dry out, turn into a kind of biological pebble, and wait, not for minutes, not even hours, but decades, until the world gets friendly again. Sounds awesome, right? Like a real-life superhero in microscopic form. But here's the twist no one talks about. Just because you can survive anything doesn't mean you're living a good life. Because the truth is, being a tardigrade might be one of the roughest gigs in all of biology. This is a creature built to endure, because its world is full of chaos. A creature that outlasts extinction, only to wake up alone. A creature we admire for its strength, but rarely ask what that strength costs. Today we're diving into the secret life of the tardigrade, not to praise it as a miracle of evolution, but to understand why its so-called superpowers might be covering up a much sadder reality. This is not a victory story. This is a survival story, and it's the story of why it actually sucks to be a tardigrade. Tardigrades are small, like ridiculously small. You could fit dozens of them on a single grain of sand and still have room left over for a snack. They measure about 0.5 millimeter in length, so small your naked eye wouldn't even notice one waving at you. Not that they can wave, their limbs are more like stubby jelly nubs. They look like tiny squishy potatoes with 8 pudgy legs and a face that resembles a vacuum nozzle. Or, depending on who you ask, a gummy bear crossed with an alien larva. Adorable? Maybe. Creepy? Also maybe. But don't be fooled by the soft exterior. These things are monsters of survival. We're talking about creatures that can endure environments that would turn nearly every other living thing on Earth into a puddle of dead goo. Let's do the checklist. Temperatures near absolute zero? No problem. That's negative 272 degrees Celsius, just a hair away from the coldest possible temperature in the universe. Boiling heat? Easy. They can handle 150 degrees Celsius, which is beyond what most ovens even want to reach. Dehydration? They can dry out like old raisins and stay that way for decades, then just rehydrate and walk it off like nothing happened. Crippling pressure? They've survived forces 6 times greater than the deepest ocean trench on Earth. Radiation? They've tanked doses that would obliterate a human in minutes. Space? Yep. In 2007, tardigrades hitched a ride into outer space. No suit, no spaceship, just floating in the vacuum, and came back alive. So yeah, they're built different. They're basically the biological equivalent of that one weird cousin who eats expired food and never gets sick. But here's the thing most people miss. When a creature has to be this tough, that probably means the universe has been really cruel to it. Tardigrades didn't evolve superpowers for fun. They didn't ask to be invincible. They needed to be, because their environment is constantly trying to kill them. They live in places where life is a dice roll, and the dice are on fire. The ground beneath them might dry up overnight. A shift in humidity could mean suffocation. A splash of water could be a flood. A falling grain of dust could be a fatal impact. So they adapted. Over hundreds of millions of years, they became the ultimate survivors. But here's the catch. Survival like that doesn't come without a price. And in the case of the tardigrade, the price is almost everything else that makes life worth living. So now we know tardigrades are nearly unkillable. But what kind of world do they live in exactly? Well, imagine a place where physics doesn't behave the way you're used to, where even a gentle breeze becomes a hurricane, and a simple drop of water turns into a full-blown natural disaster. Welcome to the microscopic world. Down here, size changes everything. A water droplet to us is just a minor splash, but to a tardigrade, it's a tsunami. The forces we call harmless, surface tension, viscosity, friction, become monstrous obstacles. Imagine walking through a world where the air feels like syrup, where gravity is basically on vacation, and where moving forward feels like dragging yourself through a pool of honey, wearing a snowsuit. Tardigrades live in thin films of water, the moisture that clings to moss, soil, tree bark, or even lichen. It's a world that exists in microseconds, where everything can change in the blink of an eye. That little drop of dew you didn't even notice on a leaf? To a tardigrade, that's an entire ecosystem. It's their jungle, their ocean, their universe. But it's a cruel universe. They're constantly under threat. Not from predators, though there are some, but from the environment itself. A dry morning sunbeam, that's a death sentence by dehydration. A gust of wind, that could throw them into the void. The wrong pH, toxic. Too much salt, fatal. Too little oxygen, game over. There is no such thing as safe in their world, only slightly less dangerous than yesterday. So what do? They freeze, literally. When conditions go bad, which is all the time, a tardigrade does something no human can. It puts itself into suspended animation, shuts down its body, shrinks, dries out, becomes a little biological rock. In this state, it's nearly impossible to kill, but here's the catch. It's also not really alive anymore. No heartbeat, no brain activity, no movement, just waiting. Sometimes for days, sometimes for decades. Now ask yourself, if your daily life required you to keep dying and reviving just to stay alive, is that really living? Imagine going to sleep to escape a crisis and waking up to another one. No progress, no peace, no rest, just survival on loop. That's the world of the tardigrade. Not an adventure, not a peaceful forest life, but a never-ending series of existential threats on a microscopic scale. It's not just small, it's a living hell at tiny resolution. Imagine this. You're in the middle of a disaster. Everything's collapsing. You can't breathe. You're drying out. Radiation's blasting you in the face. The world around you is turning uninhabitable, second by second. But instead of panicking, you just shut the whole system down. You don't run. You don't fight. You do something far weirder. You stop being alive without actually dying. This is what tardigrades do. They enter a state known as cryptobiosis, a kind of deep biological sleep, so extreme it's hard to even call it life. In this state, they become a little dried-up capsule called a toon. No heartbeat, no breathing, no cellular activity. They're shriveled up like a microscopic raisin. Their water content drops by over 95%, and their metabolism slows to 0.01% of normal, basically hitting the pause button on existence. And here's the kicker. They can stay like this for decades. That's right, a tardigrade could go into toon mode in the 1990s and wake up tomorrow like nothing happened. But let's not romanticize this too much. Cryptobiosis is not a superpower. It's a last resort. It's a white flag. It's the tardigrade saying, "I give up. Call me when the apocalypse is over." Sure, they survive, but at what cost? The moss you used to live on? Gone. The other microbes you hung out with? Long dead. The environment? Probably worse. You're alive, yes, but you're starting from zero. Again. And this isn't a one-time emergency protocol. This is normal life for a tardigrade. Sleep, wake up, survive. Sleep again. Repeat. There's no thriving, no building, no growing community, just this weird rhythm of near-death and not quite life. Imagine living your entire existence as a series of emergency shutdowns. Imagine never being fully awake for long, because staying awake means dying. We call it resilience, but from the tardigrade's perspective, it probably feels more like a curse than a gift. They don't get the luxury of rest. They don't get comfort. They don't even get to be fully alive, not for long. They just endure. Which sounds noble, until you realize that's all they do. Imagine being the strongest, most resilient thing on the planet. You've survived every catastrophe the Earth has thrown your way. You've outlived mass extinctions, solar radiation, dehydration, and time itself. You are, by all accounts, a biological superhero. But here's the punchline no one talks about. You're completely alone. Tardigrades have been around for over 500 million years. That's older than dinosaurs, older than insects. They've seen continents move, oceans rise and fall, and entire species come and go. And yet, they've barely changed. Why? Because when your survival strategy is don't die and wait it out, evolution slows to a crawl. There's no pressure to innovate, no drive to develop complex brains, communities, or even proper eyes. They're like ancient tanks, still running because nothing ever forced them to upgrade. And that comes at a cost: connection. Tardigrades aren't social. They don't build colonies. They don't cooperate. No teamwork, no family bonds, no society, just one squishy, eight-legged potato trying to make it through another day alone in a droplet of moss. There's no parent to raise the young, no community to belong to. Even mating for many species is a casual drop-and-go affair. Some don't even bother. They just clone themselves and call it a day. There's no shared memory, no passed-down wisdom. Every tardigrade is born into the chaos, fends for itself, and eventually fades out. Forgotten. Their superpowers didn't buy them glory, they bought them isolation. And here's the tragic irony. They're survivors of everything, but they experience almost nothing. They don't play, they don't learn, they don't dream, they endure, and endure, and endure. The universe keeps trying to kill them, and instead of pushing back, they fold into themselves and wait. Can you imagine what that feels like? To be the toughest creature alive, but too small to matter, too primitive to connect, and too alone to be remembered? It's the kind of loneliness that no superpower can fix, not strength, not endurance, not even immortality. Because what's the point of surviving forever if you're surviving it by yourself? Let's take a step back. When we first met the tardigrade, it looked like a marvel. A creature so tough it made cockroaches look soft. We admired it for what it could do, survive the impossible, endure the unbearable, and persist where everything else perishes. But now that we've really looked at its life, that admiration starts to feel a little different. Because the truth is, the tardigrade isn't thriving. It's not living a life of adventure or purpose. It's not exploring new frontiers or evolving into something greater. It's just not dying. And not dying is not the same as living. Every ability the tardigrade has, every weird biological hack, is a reaction to how brutal its world is. It can shut down because life is too dangerous to stay awake. It can dry up because water is so unpredictable. It can take radiation and space and pressure because no one else wants to live where it does. And that's the heart of it. Tardigrades didn't evolve to be powerful. They evolved to suffer and keep going. Their whole existence is a kind of quiet tragedy. No rest, no companionship, no comfort, no progress. Just an endless game of biological limbo. Stay still, don't die, wait it out. They're nature's emergency plan. The just-in-case creatures. Plan Z. And in a way, that's beautiful. It means that even in the most hopeless places, life still hangs on. But it also forces us to ask, is resilience really the goal? Is surviving at all costs worth it? Because sometimes strength doesn't come from enduring the worst. Sometimes it comes from connection, from building, from joy, from growth. The tardigrade doesn't get any of that. It got the short end of the evolutionary stick. It can survive literally anything, but not enjoy anything. It's not a superhero. It's not a champion. It's a tiny, misunderstood creature doing whatever it takes to keep going in a universe that seems determined to wipe it out. Built not for greatness, not for happiness, just built to suffer. And that's why, for all its toughness and glory, it actually kinda sucks to be a tardigrade. We all love the idea of something that outlives it all. The lone survivor, the last one standing, the myth of the indestructible hero who walks out of the apocalypse and keeps going. And in the real world, that title probably belongs to the tardigrade. Scientists believe that if Earth were to get hit by a massive asteroid, if the oceans boiled into the sky, if the atmosphere burned away, or even if the sun itself flickered and died, tardigrades would still be here. Somewhere, in a crack of rock, in a frozen cave, or deep beneath the ocean floor, one of them would pull into a ton, dry out, and wait. Wait through the fire, wait through the silence, wait through the death of everything. They're not just survivors. They are, possibly, the final chapter of life on Earth. But here's where the story turns dark. What if you're the last one alive? Forever. What if everything else is gone? Every bird, every tree, every fish, every whisper of community or comfort. And you're still here. Just floating through time. Alone, undying, forgotten. That's not immortality. That's not resilience. That's not even life anymore. That's a curse. The tragedy of the tardigrade isn't that it's weak. It's that it's too strong to die when everything else does. It will never know that it's alone. It doesn't have the brain to understand what's been lost. But maybe that makes it even sadder, that it will outlive the planet that made it, and never even realize what it survived for. Because when the lights finally go out, when the last breath of wind dies and the last ocean turns to dust, there might still be a tardigrade curled into itself, waiting for a new beginning that will never come. In the end, the tardigrade teaches us something strange. That life doesn't always roar, sometimes it just whispers. A tiny creature, with no eyes to see the world, no heart to feel it, no mind to remember it. Yet it keeps going, not because it hopes, not because it dreams, but because that's all it knows how to do. It survives the fire, the frost, the fall of stars, not with strength, not with willpower, but with a quiet kind of surrender. It endures, not as a triumph, but as a reminder that survival isn't always glory, that resilience can be lonely, that some victories don't feel like winning at all. So maybe the story of the tardigrade isn't about how to live forever. Maybe it's about why we live at all. Not just to last, but to connect, to grow, to feel, to matter. Because being alive is more than not dying. And if the last survivor of Earth teaches us anything, it's that what really gives life meaning is not how long it lasts, but what we do with the time we have. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this strange, tiny tale from the edge of biology, hit that like button, subscribe for more weird nature stories, and tell a friend about the little creature that won't quit, even if it secretly wants to. Until next time, stay curious and be kind to the weirdos.